So, you open Google Chrome on your phone, you're rushing to buy tickets to a concert that all your friends are going to. Picture yourself now, crowd surfing to the front, being invited onto the stage, backstage the world tour, and before you know it, you're dancing in Tokyo. Wait, what? 3 tickets left? It's a good thing your saved payment details autofill quickly and securely. There's no place like Chrome. Download Google Chrome on your phone.
Hi, I'm Ryan Reynolds. As owner of Mint Mobile, I couldn't wait to make my first commercial for Spotify listeners. I thought, I'll tell them to go to mintmobile.com/Spotify to get premium wireless for just $15 a month. Then I thought, they'll never believe the owner bragging, so I'll bring on a real Mint customer who knows it's premium wireless for just $15 a month. Then I thought, how will they know it's not just me acting as a customer? Then I thought, what if they don't think I'm a good enough actor to play a customer? Then I cried and went to bed the end.
New activation and upfront payment for 3-month plan required. Taxes and fees extra. Additional restrictions apply. See mintmobile.com for full terms.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of A Visit to the Mound. I'm Lark Smith, along with
Stan Huff.
And today we're going to talk baseball cards with a guy that knows a whole lot about that subject, a fellow by the name of Brent Bankston. Brent, welcome in.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate y'all.
Tell us a little bit about baseball cards. I know I collected some back when I was a kid. Just go to the Little League field concession stand, buy a bubble gum pack, and chew that nasty bubble gum, but look through the cards looking for Mickey Mantle and stuff. Is that still the way that people buy baseball cards today, or do they now buy them in bulk and collect them? And what's the deal?
I think it's always. I think people seem to be. I guess the pandemic has now put it in a high focus point. I think when everything was kind of taken away and our freedoms were kind of squandered and everybody was kind of left at home, I think nostalgia took over. So right now we're in a kind of a boom time for the card industry.
Great.
I think people kind of got nostalgic and wanted, what can I enjoy? What's something from my childhood? Much to your point about your childhood's opening cards and such. I think that was part of the big kind of revelation through the pandemic was, hey, I want to find my cards. What are they going for? And then as a result, online, because a lot of things were kind of going that way, value started to increase, demand started to increase, people started getting excited about cards again. So we're kind of in a kind of, like I said, a boom time. I think it's starting to level off now. It's certain, distractions and freedoms are starting to kind of return. So I think it's good because we've added a whole lot of customers. We've got kids that are 8 and men that are 88. So we got 8 to 88, and everybody's excited about the industry. And
how far out do you get people buying stuff from you, locally or nationally?
I'm the shipping department, so I'm shipping around the world every single day.
Gotcha.
But obviously, a big portion of our business is local. So we have customers that drive in from Tyler and Abilene and San Antonio and such. So there's not as many old school shops like we are anymore. Most of them have new stuff, which is just what they have. And you can expect, we've been there almost 40 years. So we opened in 1985. So as a result, we have a lot of inventory. So customers are trying to build sets, or they're trying to complete, their player run or whatever it may be. So for us, we benefit from that. And there's not as many shops out there doing what we do in the old school kind of manner that we do.
So people can go to your website and buy online, right?
They can go to our website. It's not really a commerce site. We sell a lot on Amazon and a lot on eBay. It's only about 10% of what our gross is.
What's your website?
It's just Bankstons.com, BANKSTONS.com.
I see.
And you can go to that, and obviously there's data there, and you can see stuff, but we do not really sell a lot on the website. Mm-hmm. Most of our business is on eBay and Amazon.
I got you. I understand.
Looking through my baseball cards, there was many times a card that was made for special events.
Sure.
And Stan wants to bring up a special event that happened on this day in history. Stan?
Okay, yeah, we're recording this episode here on May the 2nd. Well, May the 2nd, 1939, Lou Gehrig set out against the Detroit Tigers, and it was that ended his 2,130 game streak.
Set an incredible record. It sure did.
Yeah, 17 years. And the guy that followed him was a guy named Babe Dahlgren, who we just looked up. We
Yeah.
knew who Wally Pipp was.
Wally Pipp. Yeah.
Everybody knows that Wally Pipp guy was the guy that set the bench for the next 1,200 games or whatever it was.
That was the worst headache of his life. Anyway,
tough
he
go.
should have played. But, Lou was born June 19th, 1903 in New York, and he died June the 2nd, 1941 at 37 years old. And he's buried in Kensico Cemetery in Valhalla, New York. Anyway, so he went to Columbia University. I just wanted to mention that because I've checked stuff out all the time, and this was this on this day in sports, May the 2nd.
Can you imagine? I mean, that's pretty significant. Just the day that he steps off the field, and you know that that's it. Because obviously, I think it was becoming much. I mean, it's known as Lou Gehrig's disease now, but at that time.
ALS.
Yeah. So we're realizing such a stalwart, such an all-time great, and his career comes to an end kind of tragically.
I bet you've seen a few of his baseball cards. Huh?
We actually have one right now. We have a great 34 Gaudy that I picked up from a customer, and I have it in the case, and it's one of my favorites because Gehrig's don't come around very often.
I'm sure they don't.
Yeah.
Yeah, they just don't. It's like Ruth's. They come into the collection, and then they people don't let them go. They stay in the family.
Right.
Pass them down.
Yeah. I've done some personal research into what I thought was a really great stat. Number of runs produced per game played.
Okay.
And the guy that produced the most runs per game played was Lou Gehrig. And it was almost a run per game played.
Still stands to this day.
Still stands to this day.
Wow. That's impressive.
Yeah, I mean, that guy just has some impressive numbers. Okay, Ruth's up there, yes. A-Rod's up there. Willie Mays is up there, but Gehrig is far and away. I think he's the only one that produced at least a run per game played.
And played as an Iron Man every single day. Didn't take a day off, and for 17 years.
Yeah, that was one of his nicknames, Iron Horse.
Yeah.
Is also, they called him Biscuit Pants, Buster, and LaRupin, whatever that means, Crown Prince of SWAT or Columbia, Crown Prince of Columbia.
Yeah.
So that's, he's voted in the Hall of Fame by special election.
I mean, he could basically
1939.
He could basically walk to Yankee Stadium from his house.
Wow.
He's right there. Yeah.
So LaRupin, little sidetrack, came from what they called his barnstorming team. It was the LaRupin Lou's
Okay.
that would face Babe Ruth's team, and they would travel. And they obviously came to Waco because they would barnstorm throughout the year. And there's a lot of Ruth baseballs autographed here in Waco, Texas. I know that because I've seen at least 4.
Wow.
And so over the years, now they don't let them go, much to our previous conversation. But LaRupin Lou's was. So I think LaRupin's probably like a gallop or a running. I don't know that for a fact, but that's where that comes from. It was LaRupin Lou's, and then they play the Babe All-Stars or the Babes, whatever. And so the LaRupin Lou's.
Well, and that game they played here in Waco was against the Waco Cubs.
Okay.
Correct?
Right, yeah.
Yeah, and from what I understand, that Babe Ruth didn't play in the game, but in batting practice, he hit one on the Percy Medical Building way across the street. So everybody thought, no way he did that. But, yeah, my grandfather was a chef at the Raleigh Hotel, and actually stayed in the Raleigh.
They did stay in Raleigh, and kids were throwing balls up to him, and he'd roll them off back to him. He'd sign them and roll them back off, and that's how some of our customers got their baseballs.
Right. And the Raleigh was 2 blocks away from Katy Ballpark, and that was a big deal. So it was one of those deals. They were going to all these towns by train, and that's how they were making a lot of money.
Sure, off-season money makes sense.
Exactly.
Yeah. Going back to baseball cards, as far as today's player, who seems to be the most popular card collected?
Well, just like anything, I think everyone has their own perspective and their own teams, but there are guys that are really popular right now. I think if you're talking right now in 2023, which we are, here we are on May 2nd, Adley Rutschman, the Baltimore Orioles catcher, people are excited about him. Julio Rodriguez, the Mariners outfielder, people like him a lot. There's lots of guys that are everyone kind of finds their guy. The Rangers are excited about Josh Young. So obviously he grew up in San Antonio. If you didn't know this, he shopped at Bankston's growing up as a kid.
Did he really?
Yeah.
Well, that's good.
Yeah. So I text him every other day. You know, he'll text me, which is amazing to me. He comes off the field. He had a couple bombs the other day and had a great game. And I'm going to text him, say, great game, but you know what I was so proud about you was that you were trying to give Yuri Rodriguez encouragement at the end of the game. And I was like, that's the kind of leadership we need. I mean, I could see him behind him. He's patting him. He's like, hey, you got this. Because he's struggling in that 15-2 win on Sunday. And I was like, I texted him. I said, hey, man, I know you had a great day. And if y'all didn't see that, he hit the grand slam. And then he comes back up and he has a shot for a second grand slam. And he watches a 3-2 high fastball. It comes in. It's right above the zone. And I was like, dude, that was a scrutinizing eye you had to have to let that go. Because, I mean, just have another shot at a grand slam late in the game. And I told him, I said, as proud as I am of you for that, I was like, Yuri supporting him and backing him up on the mound, I thought that was powerful. And he's like, he emphasized it. And he's like, yeah, I got it.
Yeah, that's the team. What about Ohtani?
Yeah,
extremely popular. People, I mean, he's probably our biggest first-time global sensation. So if it's in Japan or Korea or United States, all baseball fans around the world are fans of Ohtani. Just to see something that really, and you mentioned Ruth. I mean, I don't know that he really ever did it simultaneously. So to have someone doing it simultaneously where you're pitching and hitting at such a high rate, and I know the Rangers were in on him, and he chose California or the Anaheim Angels.
Right.
But to answer your question, we sell his Japanese cards are extremely rare and sought after, and so if you can find those, tough, and extremely expensive.
Right.
But his domestic cards, which start in 18, 19, in those years, extremely sought after, and people love them.
Right. I see. What about Trout? Mike Trout
still sells extremely well. Obviously, he's had some injuries, and people that from an investment standpoint, and that's part of what Lark was talking about earlier. What drives people? Why they collect? What's emotion most often? Number one. Number two, it's a sense of their performance. Right. We talked about that earlier.
Right.
Stan and I were talking about that off air. Performance is part of it. And obviously his injuries have kind of slowed that momentum because he was getting those favorable comparisons to Mickey Mantle. And everybody was like, oh, this is this generation's Mantle. And look at his numbers and how he projects out, which is all true. I don't like the fact that he's a Philadelphia Eagle fan, but other than that, I like him a lot.
At least from that part of the country.
Yeah. So Mike Trout is still one of the top selling cards, kind of internationally and nationally. His rookie cards, which is a 2010 update, sells currently for a nice one is $1,200 to $2,000 for a Topps base card out of an update set.
Oh yeah.
So just imagine that some of the cards that we talk about today, they come out of a $3 or $4 pack. And that card is literally a minimum of $1,200 and can go for $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 depending on how nice it is and if it's graded or not.
Right.
I've always told my two boys that if they want to experience what I experienced watching Mickey Mantle as a kid, watch Mike Trout.
Yeah.
I mean, just outstanding ball player, just a great guy.
Sure.
I'm gonna think some cards that may kind of have a peak and a valley to some degree are the guys that were successful at the World Series, like a Framber Valdez or Yordan Alvarez.
Jeremy Pena. Yeah, Pena won the MVP, and people went crazy for it. So, pitchers, and y'all know this, are very erratic. And so you can have guys like Madison Bumgarner, who, a few years ago was MVP, and then now has, basically diminished. And so pitchers are, so from an investment standpoint, and I know I keep referencing that, I think there's two facets to this. There's emotion in our fandom and their success and their failure, and then there's strategy on how you buy, sell, and collect. And so pitchers are usually not, something that people put a lot of money in until they're done. So if it's Tom Seaver or Nolan Ryan, or most recently, I guess, be guys like Randy Johnson and Greg Maddux, once they're done, then there's more demand for those cards. But during their careers, it's such a roller coaster, to your point, Lark.
Okay.
Yeah.
So typically, people don't get real high or low. I mean, DeGrom, people were really excited when he signed, but yet, here's a twitch here, and there's a twing there, and there's a thing here, and there's a thing.
Now,
so
I think he's out now, too.
Yeah,
10 days.
Is it 10 days? And so I saw where, his rookies are $75 to $100, and they sell well, but I think everybody buys it with a consideration that this is not going to maybe be a, if he doesn't play, then obviously he can't perform. And so there's always that, there's my son who's 19 put it this way. He's like, they're like high performance vehicles. They're like Ferraris. And y'all going around baseball a lot more than I have as far as the real on the field game. And this, that they are high performance vehicles. And if you can't get everything exactly right, then they're going to have a twinge here and a tweak there. And
exactly. Yeah.
So pitchers, to answer your question, pitchers typically don't have the same demand curve as baseball, football, and the regular kind of positional players.
Okay, we're talking baseball cards, but I'm sure y'all deal in all kinds of collectibles, correct?
Correct.
Tell me some of the other collectibles. I guess signed baseballs and other things.
Yeah, so ironically, to your point, a year ago we picked up one of the largest collections we've ever bought. In fact, it is the largest collection we've ever bought. Gene Pemberton, who you may know,
from over in Temple. He
Yep,
used
Temple.
to be with the Astros.
Correct. Gene, we bought Gene's family estate and all his collection. We bought that in January of last year, so in 22. And so now we're having to sort that, and it's by far the most expensive collection we've ever bought, and it has the most stuff in it. He's got hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of bats autographed and game used, and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, and maybe even thousands of autographed baseballs and jerseys and posters and programs and tickets and all these things. The family came to us several years ago and said, hey, do y'all have interest in this? And we got in a bidding war with TriStar, and we ended up getting the whole collection. And so now, so if you come in Bankston's, and I know Coach did, Stan did a couple days ago, we have a whole new wall display, and it's all Pemberton stuff. So we have a lot of customers are coming in and buying Hall of Famers. Obscure Hall of Famers are really hot right now. And y'all obviously know Ted Lyons, Baylor's only Hall of Famer.
That's right. Yeah.
So that guy, his autographed baseballs are now $700 to $1,000. If you'd asked me this question 2 years ago, they were $120, $150. But these obscure Hall of Famer baseballs now are becoming sought after. And this is just in the last 60 to 90 days this has happened. So right as the new year turned, Stan Kovaleski, Travis Jackson, Ted Lyons, just all these kind of random guys that's a Hall of Famer, but I don't really know much about him.
Right.
Those kind of autographed baseballs have become super sought after.
Really?
And so some of it may be on the heels of the pandemic, where people are starting to complete their collections. Like, I need all the Hall of Famers. And I personally right now have about 6 guys working on these sets of baseballs.
Wow.
So Ted Lyons and Gene Pemberton were close. So Gene Pemberton was like Ted Lyons' little brother.
Wow.
And so when they would go to the Hall of Fame inductions, Gene would go with him.
I see.
So then Gene met Ted Williams, and he met Joe Sewell, and then he met, and so basically Ted Lyons was the guy that everybody liked. He was a gentleman in a sport that was not very much of a gentlemanly type thing. So everyone liked Ted Lyons. So here we are all these years later, and Gene used that access to get all these autographs. And so I have baseballs of all these different guys because of Ted Lyons.
Wow.
So
That's interesting.
I've got 3 different baseballs at home. 2 of them I think we bought when I was a kid out in San Francisco, the year that the Candlestick Park had the All-Star game. It's a ball signed by National League All-Stars and another one by American League All-Stars. I just wonder, I'm not sure I want to get rid of them ever, but what kind of value might they have?
Sure. So it's a cumulative aspect.
Because they're not authenticated.
That's okay. Yeah, team baseballs are an accumulation of autographs. So you'd actually look, and so what year was this that you're talking about?
I want to say it was probably 63, 64.
Okay. All right. So
whatever year the All-Star game was played at Candlestick back
so your
then.
NL would be like Mays, McCovey.
Right.
I guess in National League in that time period, I'm trying to think who
The
else.
Alou boys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So basically it's a cumulative effect. And team balls do not sell unless it's something that when they won, like if the 86 Mets or the Reds when they won in the Big Red Machine, those kind of things, those team baseballs, they have marketability. Of course, Yankee baseballs, because they've won a lot of them.
Right.
But team baseballs that are more all-stars and, the 1984 Texas Rangers or the 1980 81 Houston Astros, which might have Stan on it from spring training.
Might not, too.
Yeah, might not as well. That's right. Could be either way, 50-50 on that one. So team baseballs traditionally don't have a whole lot of value because they need to, unless they have significant people on there.
Right.
So that's an alternative. I talked about the guys who are trying to get Hall of Famers. Well, a lot of ways they can do that is to get a cheaper team ball that has that guy on it, and that holds the spot for a single signed ball. Single signed balls are by far the most sought after. So a Ruth single signed ball is going to sell more than a 26 Yankees ball, which I have one in the store right now. So the 26 Yankees ball we have there, you can see Ruth is on the sweet spot, but a single signed Ruth baseball is going to be a whole lot more. Yeah. So that's a long-winded way to answering your question. I would guess in the early 60s, it's going to be probably a $200 to $300 baseball. Granted, if it had Clemente on it, that adds a whole lot more value because obviously people are going to use that as a placeholder for their swing. Because finding a single signed Clemente is going to be touching $8,000 to $10,000.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Also have a somewhat special baseball. When the Texas Rangers moved from Washington, they had a old timers game at the old Arlington Stadium of former New York Yankees playing former Washington Senators before the Yankees Washington game that particular day. 3-inning old timer game. Got invited up to the President's Club, whatever, about the 4th inning. And my brother's father-in-law handed us a baseball signed by Billy Martin, Mickey Mantle, Whitey Ford, Yogi Berra, all these old Yankees. And I can imagine some Yankee fan somewhere would like to have something.
They were there, weren't they?
Yeah, they were there.
Your nephew showed me pictures of that.
Yeah.
And there's lots of leisure suits, lots of polyester.
Yeah.
And I thought that was awesome because you can see them all mingling and kind of getting along with everybody. And
I can actually say I drank a beer with Whitey and Mickey.
Yeah,
and,
that's
and
awesome.
Billy.
Yeah, you and many others would say the same thing. But I love the fact that story, and so that's a great item. And so anything that's going to have those kind of concentric Yankees on it can be highly sought after. I'd say in a value wise, probably Mantle alone, then Ford and Martin. You're probably talking $12 to $1,500. So that's a high dollar ball because it has now. Granted, when you add other people to it, it somewhat diminishes that too.
Well,
so
I'll have to remember that when my Social Security runs out.
Right? Yeah, looking for other resources. Yeah,
Exactly.
Yeah.
Anyway, so what? So you got bats there that are signed as well.
Lots. Yeah, Gene was very connected. So of course, as Lark mentioned, we have lots of Houston Astros stuff. So when he went to work for the Astros, I think he was community relations and promotional stuff. And then they quickly moved him to team chaplain. I think probably part of the reason in hindsight as I see the collection is probably because he was wearing out the players for all these items and all these bats and jerseys and balls.
I wouldn't doubt it.
And so I think they probably were like, we need to move this guy to something else. And he became the first full-time chaplain in Major League Baseball history.
Yeah.
Really? And so I'm proud of that. And obviously he passed away in 2019. And so I'm sad that was the case. And I only met him one time when he came in the store and he was already kind of declining. But I'm a big fan of Gene and what he did, and he interacted with a lot of the Houston charities and helped with the Sunshine Kids, which was Biggio's deal. He wore the little sunshine thing on his hat.
Mm-hmm.
So he was big on all that. So to answer your question, yes, we have lots of baseball bats.
I understand. That's good. So let me see. You got anything else?
I can't think of anything. Just as far as baseball cards go, it sounds like you have those that are just kind of interested in the card, and then you've got those that are interested in the investment collection. I mean, is there a lot of buying and selling? Are there certain people that buy and sell, and then there's some people that just collect?
Yeah, and it changes. Like I said, the pandemic has brought a lot of people in that maybe we're looking more as the investment side of it, and that's fine too. But obviously, our goal is customers come in and want a Mickey Mantle card, or they want a Yogi Berra card, or a Ted Williams. We just sold a Ted Williams rookie a couple weeks ago. So people get nostalgic. Baseball, and y'all know this because it's in your hearts as well. It's very nostalgic. They're very emotional about certain teams we played for, and players we know, and players we think. And I'm talking about Josh Young because I feel like he's partially my son. He's 25 years old, and I look at him and I'm like, man, this kid has got it, and it just need to stay healthy, right?
Right.
And so we have these relationships, and baseball's about relationships more than anything else. So customers collect those relationships. Oh, I like Adrian Beltre, or I like Nolan Ryan, or I like whoever. And so Bobby Witt Jr., people are very connected to Bobby Witt because of his dad and obviously his connections to the Metroplex.
Right.
So those are the kind of situations that result in people investing. So, hey, I love this guy, and I think he's going to be really good. And it's a little bit of an ego thing too, right? I see things in this guy, and obviously y'all being around the game, y'all see guys who have talent, and you're like, I think this guy's got it. But there's, as we know earlier, Coach and I were talking about the sequence of all the things that can happen, and talent is the last thing, as he referenced.
Very last thing, yeah.
Would you touch on that? That was awesome when you talked about it.
Okay, well, the 5 ways you get out of baseball is like you can eat your way out. You get so big that you can't produce, you can't run on the field.
Yeah.
The second thing was with the stress of the game is being a competitive nature is drugs and alcohol.
Sure.
And that's taken a lot of them out.
Sure.
There's a lot of good ones too. And women, chasing women till the sun comes up. You're too tired to produce. You can't go out on the field, and you're lacking in your production. You get let go.
Sure.
Okay. Well, there are some guys that couldn't quit doing that, obviously. Then there's an injury. An injury will eliminate a lot of guys. Okay. But the very last thing was talent.
Yeah.
That's it. Those other things, I mean, it's a process of elimination. That's almost the way it goes.
Sure. So a lot of them, most of them have talent. It's just all those other things get in the way, right? And so.
Oh yeah, I mean, when these scouts sign these guys, they got to see them in major league uniforms. They don't sign them as a rookie ball player or an A-ball or double-A. It's they got to actually, in their own mind, see these guys playing as major league ball players, and that's how they go about that.
Kind of what I've said about most of the baseball games I've watched nowadays. Is there's more teams that are losing games than as opposed to teams that are actually winning games.
Sure.
And that's kind of the as Ron Washington says, the way baseball goes.
That's the way baseball goes. That's right.
That's
classic.
it.
It's classic.
You bet.
Our guest today is Brent Bankston. Brent, before you go, give us your website again. Tell us your address where people can come to the store and browse and see what you have.
Sure. So we've been in Waco, Texas since 1985. We're at 1321 South Valley Mills Drive there in Waco, Texas, 76711. Our phone number is 254-755-0070. And you can go to Bankstons.com, or you can just contact and reach out to us at info@Bankstons.com. And I communicate all around the world every day, single day.
That's Bankstons, right?
Yeah, I said that a little fast. I appreciate that.
That's it.
So if somebody is looking for a specific card or something and they go to Amazon, that's another way to
Sure, we have stores. We have stores on both sites, and so that's just a portion of what we do. So you're looking at that department right now.
We thank you very much for your time today, Brent.
Enjoyed it.
Appreciate it, guys.
This has been a Rogue Media podcast.